Something that's really crazy to me is that a lot of people are carrying around a $1,500, $2,000 camera in their pocket and they don't even realize it. So for the longest time, mobile photography was kind of looked down on and deemed as amateur. But with technology advancing, when used correctly, your phone can take some really, really high quality photos that even rival some cameras. So these are all photos that I managed to take on my iPhone with a little bit of editing. I even managed to get this photo of the Milky Way the other day on my iPhone. So what's holding a lot of people back isn't necessarily the phone itself or the camera in the phone, it's simply knowing how to use it correctly. So that's what I'm going to show you today, is how to use your phone like a professional photographer. For this video, I'm lucky enough to be using the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So I definitely have a bit of an advantage over, say, like an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 14, but all of these concepts remain mostly the same. And my phone is going to be up to date, so it's going to have the newest features of everything. So just something to keep in mind here, but that doesn't really matter. Most of these phones are going to be able to change most of the same settings and things like that. This isn't going to be like a step-by-step guide of every single button in your phone, but more how to use your phone to take better photos. So let's get into it. The first and most important thing that a lot of people get wrong, or that a lot of people get kind of confused by or don't do correctly, is using the correct camera. So as pretty much everyone can see, most phones have multiple lenses. Every single one of these lenses is going to do something different and serve its own purpose. So one is going to be an ultra wide lens. So it's going to create that fisheye effect, so you can get wide angles for landscapes or really close up kind of fisheye type photography. The second lens is going to be kind of your main standard camera when you open your phone and it's at 1x. That's going to be your main lens. I think it's a 24mm if I'm correct. This is kind of your daily go-to lens. And then the third one is the telephoto lens. That's the one that allows you to zoom in and zoom out really far. So obviously each one of these lenses serves its own purpose and should be used in different situations. The way that you're going to be changing between these three lenses is going to be by zooming in and out. So when you go to 0.5, for example, that's using the ultra wide. When you go to 1, it's 24mm, that's your standard lens. And then anytime you zoom in, you're going to be using your telephoto lens. So depending on the situation, you're going to want to make sure you're using the correct lens. If you're trying to take a photo of like a bird, you're going to want to zoom in a little bit. If you take a photo too far and try cropping in, it's going to lose some quality. It's not going to be the same, so you're best to zoom in. Or say you're at like a sports event or a concert and you want to get this really wide angle to show kind of the grandeur of the field and the sky, you're going to want to use like a wide angle lens so you can get that whole landscape in there. Like, don't be afraid to zoom in and out. Each one of these lenses kind of gives a different feeling and a different perspective to the photo. So for example, this is a photo I took up north. In this photo, zoomed out, it looks good. You can see this wide landscape, all the trees and all the nature. It's not a bad photo by any means, but just when I zoomed in and took the same photo just with a little bit less distraction, a little bit more subject focus on the specific part of the landscape that I was looking for, you can see that it kind of really narrows down the field of vision and kind of gives a direct subject to look at rather than this very busy photo. This is composition, photography 101. So you really want to put a lot of thought into the composition. The message here is don't be afraid to zoom in and out, use different cameras, experiment. If you're taking a portrait, step back a little bit and zoom in with your camera, and you'd be surprised. It kind of gives a bit more of a depth of field look to it. So experiment with these different lenses. That's what they're there for. Use all three depending on the situation. So on these new iPhones, there's a lot of different settings that you can play around with to make sure the photo that you're taking looks how you want it to be taken. So on the side of your phone here, there's gonna be a little button. And if you press that, that's gonna pull up all of the options. So this is really good when you're holding it landscape because it's almost like the trigger button on a camera, but you can also do this here with your thumb or with your finger if you want. Pressing this button here really allows you to go through the settings. So the first one is exposure. So exposure is just the brightness of the photo. So if you increase it, you can see it gets really bright. If you reduce it, it gets really dark. So this is good for if you're noticing in the photo, your foreground is nice, but the sky in the background is super bright and there's no details in the clouds, anything like that. Lower the exposure a bit. It's always better to expose for the sky. So make sure the sky is kind of the right brightness. And even if the foreground is a little bit darker, you can always edit that after. So just a little tip there. I would always expose for the sky so then you can kind of adjust the foreground as needed later. But exposure, that's like the number one thing in photography is you can mess around with your exposure. So the iPhone cameras are pretty good at kind of auto exposing, I would say, but in certain situations you might find it's not doing the best job. This is when you can go and fix it. Number two, or the second option here is depth. So it's a little F logo that stands for f-stop, so aperture. Aperture is the depth of field in your photo. So if you have a low aperture, so the lowest, for example, my camera goes is f1.4, you're gonna have your subject in focus and the background's gonna be really, really blurry, which is really giving that kind of professional photographer effect. That's what, when you're buying a camera with lenses, typically the more expensive lenses have lower aperture so you can get more of that depth of field, because that's what everyone loves. It looks super professional, super high quality. But if you wanted to, for example, take a photo and also have the background in focus, but your kind of camera's not doing that, you can click this and increase your aperture all the way. So the highest here is f16. So notice here how if I go from f16 all the way down to f1.4, look how much the depth of field changes. At f1.4, everything in the foreground is in focus, but the background is super creamy and super blurry. It's called bokeh. This is how you can kind of get that look that you're looking for. Just be careful here. Sometimes these kind of camera lenses, you can get kind of like this little blurriness. It can't define the edges. If you have a very clear subject, like a black subject on a white background, it'll be pretty good at defining the edges. But if your subject isn't perfect, you'll notice a little bit of blurring. If that's the case, just increase it a little bit. Go from f1.4 to f2 or 2.5. That's still low enough to give a nice depth of field. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do here. You can also tap and hold the subject and it'll say your autofocus is locked. So this is really good if you want one specific subject that you want to stay in focus, but you're going to be moving around a bit. You just tap and lock your autofocus on that subject and it's going to stay in focus while you move around. It will only go out of focus if you tap the screen again and focus on a different subject. And when you start playing around with these settings, you're gonna notice that there's a lot of stuff you can really do to make your photo better. Zoom in, zoom out, adjust the depth of field. You can even go on the side and shoot in different color profiles. So if you go down to the styles here, you can kind of see there's a lot of different styles that will be built in. It's basically a filter built into the photo. If this is your thing and you want all your photos throughout the day or throughout the shoot to have the same palette or same kind of look to them, you can go ahead and do this. But this kind of leads me into my last point. It's going to kind of help you increase the quality of your photos, is you should be editing your photos. I'm not saying you have to throw this crazy filter and all these edits and make it look super unrealistic, but simply adjusting the lighting and the colors just a little bit, even to help match, isn't cheating. Editing isn't cheating, it's finishing the photo. Because even sometimes you'll be looking at, for example, a sunset, you take a photo with your phone and you go, wow, it looked a lot better in person because of the settings that you took the photo with. It didn't really look exactly how you were picturing in your head. You can edit the photo to really bring out those colors and give it the look that you wanted, that you find is more natural than the photo. So you don't have to really go crazy with this. If you want, you can really push your edits and have a good time, but you don't have to over edit your photos. You can simply do a little bit of adjustments. Now you can edit directly in the Photos app and adjust as needed. If you're just getting started or you don't want to do that many edits, the app works fine. No worries. But when you're kind of really getting into it and advancing to a higher quality level of photography, you can download an app like Lightroom Mobile, for example, and you can really control all the different colors. You can control the lighting. You can add masks on things. You can control each color in the photo individually. You can really have fun in here. So this is kind of a next step for editing if you want to go in that direction. But there's a ton of things you can do with your phone. Don't get me wrong, I'm a photographer. I still have multiple cameras. But there's been times where I don't have my camera, or if I'm going, for example, on a last minute walk or hike and I was like, wow, there's a beautiful sunset, or I really want to take a photo of something. I'm not going to not take it. I have a $2,000 camera in my pocket with me at all times. I want to make the most of it. So I take a lot of photos on mobile. I like playing between taking photos with my camera, but I also take a lot of photos on my phone. Changing cameras, changing compositions is really helpful for me as a photographer. So I get some really, really good shots that I'm super proud of that I took with my phone. So that's it today. If you have any other questions on how to use it, maybe in the future I'll do an actual step-by-step of what every single camera setting does. But this video was more to show you that you can use your phone, and if you change the angle, you change the zoom, you change the lighting a little bit, you change the depth of field, you edit it after, you can get some banger photos on your phone, and you don't have to have your camera with you, or you don't even have to have a camera at all. So if you want to check out my photography, go on Instagram at @thesneakylens. I have all my content there, all my photos I'm super proud of. So if you want to go support me there, that'd be greatly appreciated. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you have any other questions or comments, DM me on Instagram or drop a comment here on YouTube. I'd be glad to discuss and answer any questions you have. I really like engaging with the community, so definitely do that. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.